What's up, Pro Wrestling World? It's your boy JB coming to you with the Go Home Show for NXT's CW debut, the press conference between Roxanne Perez and the beautiful madness, Giulia. So NXT, this was their final show on USA Network, and they're going to go to CW on the 1st of October. And NXT set up some beautiful matches to open it up. But one of the most anticipated, if not the most anticipated match, is between Roxanne Perez and Giulia. So the segment opened up with them. Initially, the segment prior to had them both walk into the ring, and coming back from a commercial break, the press conference was already set up in ring. So Byron Saxton was the moderator, and Roxanne Perez was stage left, and Giulia, flanked by Funaki, her translator, was stage right. So one of the first questions that was asked was about Roxanne's reign. They asked Giulia about Roxanne's reign and could she actually defeat her. One of the funniest things about this is Roxanne just looked absolutely irritated throughout the entire segment, man. She looked so irritated by Giulia's presence, the fact that, Giulia had to speak in Japanese a little bit. It just looked like she was just so frustrated during the whole entire presser. So Giulia answered pretty much all the way in her native language, and she basically was saying, and Funaki translated, was she respects she respects Roxanne's accomplishments. That she came into NXT, she was 20 years old, and she made the brand into her own. But Roxanne reminded her that I'm coming here for a new era and for the NXT Championship. And what I like about Giulia's response here is she was speaking in her native language, but she had so much emotion. She had a lot of emotion behind what she was saying, which was beautiful. The next question was to Roxanne, and the presser asked about the hype level surrounding Giulia and how is it different from any other match she's ever been in. And Roxanne Perez, I believe she answered these questions truthfully. I don't think this was keyfab or scripted. Roxanne basically said she's been a Giulia fan before all these bandwagoners. That she watched every Giulia's match in Japan and told Giulia that this is your dream match with me because you have never been in the ring with anybody as much equity as Roxanne Perez, which is crazy because we all know Stephanie Vaquer, to name a few, that Giulia has been in the ring with. But I believe Roxanne, and here's why. A lot of WWE fan base, and this is no fault to them, in every entity that has a following, there's a large section of that following that's tribalistic, meaning that they only concern themselves with their tribe. WWE is their tribe. They don't really look outside of WWE, or if they do, they overly criticize it in favor of WWE. So a lot of WWE fans are not as privy to the larger pro wrestling world and those non-US promotions, or the US promotion is in AEW. So with Roxanne being a student of the game, she is a historian when it comes to the pro wrestling world, and make no mistake about it. I mean, at 22 years old, she's a flawless wrestler. She's a complete historian. So I do believe she was a fan of Giulia and watching her matches over in Japan. I totally believe that. And Roxanne talked about how would they ever cross paths? And they will. They have and they will inside the ring on October 1st. During Roxanne's responses, I love all of the emotion Giulia was showing. Bully Ray. Another overcritical analyst on Giulia talking about she didn't show enough emotion in the Chelsea Green match, when I could point you to about 10 different instances where Giulia showed emotion in the match. I get Giulia has to get ingratiated to the American psyche or into the WWE psyche of wrestling, but Giulia is doing just fine. She showed a lot of reaction. She was laughing at Roxanne. She was smirking at her and rolling her eyes. So she has that emotion. And she showed it throughout Roxanne's response. After Roxanne's response, Giulia straight up asked Roxanne in English, have you ever thought about how you would feel when she defeats her? And I thought that was incredible. Giulia responded quickly to Roxanne in English, man. That was impressive. So the third question was, did Giulia? The third question was to Giulia about her arrival to America and the pressure she's facing, and she's feeling overconfident. So Giulia answered, part of the question in English. She said, "Moving to America was incredible. Let's remind everybody that she's the most feared wrestler in the world, and that now the NXT gets to feel the beautiful madness." And let me tell you Giulia, Beautiful Madness is a perfect moniker for her because she's so extremely beautiful, but then you could tell there's this edginess to her. There's this madness to her that she will F you up. So I really love that about her moniker because it describes her physical presence as well. So at that moment when Julia said that in English, you could tell she was kind of nervous. She was a little unsure, but and we're gonna get into this a little later. Julia has only been in the U.S. since the end of August. English is probably her third language because she's half Japanese, half Italian. She is What she is doing is unprecedented. Like you could tell she is really trying to, and she is not afraid to try to cut English promos live while she's developing in trying to get a command of the English language. What she did was incredible. It takes courage. Take yourself that speaks English, go over to New Japan for about less than a month and try to speak Japanese to a Japanese audience when that's not your native tongue and get back to me. But to get back to this, as Julia was showing a little bit of nervousness, she began speaking back in her native tongue. And then there was an interruption. And it was another person speaking in another language. And it sounded like it was Spanish speaking person. So Byron jumped in and was like, hey, I don't know what media entity this is, but you can't interrupt right now. And guess who those cameras pan to? La Primera, the great Stephanie Vaquer, live via satellite from San Fernando, Chile. Yes. Shawn Michaels is a genius, man. Bringing in Stephanie Vaquer like that, because she's going through the visa stuff, and hopefully they can get resolved soon. But to have her cut a promo and interrupt Roxanne and Giulia was absolutely amazing. So Stephanie Vaquer basically said, what are you going to do when Stephanie Vaquer, is waiting on the other side of y'all's match between Giulia and Roxanne? And then the show just went off with a face-off between Giulia and Roxanne with Stephanie Vaquer pictured there in the middle via satellite. Shawn Michaels. I was thinking that maybe Shawn Michaels will hold Stephanie Vaquer until Halloween Havoc, but I still think this is a cool little initial debut of Stephanie, and maybe she physically makes an appearance that was via satellite, so maybe she'll make a physical appearance at Halloween Havoc or sometime between them. But to have Stephanie Vaquer on that on that big Titantron, man, that was genius work for that to be the final show of NXT and a shocker to because nobody was expecting Stephanie Vaquer because everybody knows she's going through her visa transition to get to America. So for Shawn Michaels to do that, that was genius, man. That was genius, genius, genius. My overall take on the segment, it was executed amazingly. I mean, Shawn Michaels did his thing. Some takeaways, it lets you know the importance of Giulia trying to improve her English, man. Make no mistake, that showed a lot of courage. This woman arrived in America towards the end of August, like maybe like the 29th or the 30th. And, she have said a couple of words here and there, but this was her very first like extended press conference live promo. And part of it, most of it she answered in her native tongue and she answered a good bit in English. Yes, she was a little nervous, but who cares? This is probably 80% of the reason why Giulia is down in NXT right now. Let's not forget, she has the talent and the ability to be on the main roster right now. Only reason why she's down in NXT is to continue to strengthen her English, as I've said in other videos, and to get ingratiated with American style of wrestling and America's style and psyche of cutting promos. Bully Ray was critical of Giulia not showing emotion. I think she done laid that to rest. Giulia's showing a whole lot of emotion, great emotion. And then she's only been here for a month, guys. English is probably her third language. So she's not going to be overly confident in speak. She's trying to speak probably her third language in front of a live American audience. Okay? And she's not fully comfortable just yet. And she's still doing decent. Could you imagine when she's able to like be very fluent and comfortable? So this is the importance of overseas talent and foreign talent like Stephanie Vaquer and Giulia. Is the WWE thrives on presentation, thrives on cutting live promos in front of a live audience, video packages, storytelling. So it's very important, and you can maximize your full potential in WWE because you be able to speak English. Stars like Andrade and others who, for whatever reason, are not as fluent yet or haven't took the time to learn English, that's going to be one of the things that's going to hold them back because Carmelo Hayes can't get into a live promo battle or cut any backstage promos with Andrade because he doesn't speak English very fluently. So for long-term booking like Triple H likes to do, and Shawn Michaels to an extent, you got to be able to speak English well so that you can be pushed properly, so that the full weight of the WWE machine can get behind you. Giulia and her team understands this. Stephanie Vaquer and her team understands this. And that is why they're trying so hard to get command of the English language while they're here in America. It's very important that they do that. Asuka, Kairi, Io, I mean, Giulia is already speaking English as much as them in these promos. So she understands the importance of it. Look at Hikaru Shida, who couldn't even speak English, 3 or 4 years ago? And she is probably the best out of all the Joshis. Hikaru Shida at AEW, 3-time world champion, is cutting live, fluid English-speaking promos right now. And she's getting more TV time every week because of it. Mina Shirakawa in Stardom, who is probably going to join an American promotion, whether it's AEW or WWE. WWE, if AEW keeps playing around, because Kyrie and Mina worked out with Shinsuke a couple of months ago. So Mina Shirakawa speaks very good English. Now she went to school to learn the English language as well, but Mina speaks very good English. So she's cutting promos in English very well. They understand this, and it's only going to maximize their brand. Because again, the American promotion, whether it's WWE or AEW, can fully get behind you and get you involved in larger storylines in the company. So this is why it's very important that Giulia is getting her practice in at NXT before she goes to the main roster, whether it's Raw or SmackDown. So I'm seeing criticism online about Giulia being so nervous, that the segment was so awkward because Giulia was struggling with, sometimes speaking English. To you IWC idiots, to you overcritical punks out there, how about you become a wrestler or an entertainer in whatever facet, okay? You go to Japan for about a month and start trying to speak English or start trying to speak Japanese in front of a live audience. Speak Japanese to a Japanese crowd after you've been there a month. And let me see if you won't be nervous or not. Pump the effing brakes on the criticism. Giulia, like I said earlier, has gotten here at the end of August. Here it is. We're the fourth weekend of September. She's working her ass off to speak English fluently. She's willing to be courageous and walk out there and cut a 5 to 6 minute press conference where she was working her best to speak some English throughout her speaking her native tongue. And there were spots in the segment where she was speaking English very well with a lot of emotion. Yes, there was a couple of spots where she showed some nervousness, where she had to eventually revert back to her native tongue. Can you give her time? That's why she's in NXT, for this prime example, to strengthen her English language speaking, so she can cut live promos in fluent English. That you can tell Giulia is really trying to do this, guys. And you gonna get out here, get in these comments and criticize that? Like I said, go to Japan. Try to learn Japanese in a month and get back to me. You punks always try to criticize something that you can never do yourself as efficiently or better. Giulia be just fine. I anticipate it's probably going to take her about 6 to 8 months to get like completely comfortable and fluent in English. And she won't have spots like that. But I don't freaking mind, because she's willing to show the world she's trying to learn the language. But you internet thugs get online and gonna try to bully this woman because she had a few moments in the segment. Who cares? She's willing to show you and everybody else that she's trying to learn it, that she's gonna get better at it. So pump the freaking brakes, Bully Ray, on her not showing enough emotion. And pump the brakes, you other punks, on trying to criticize her for her trying to work through her English as she's trying to cut promos. Somebody commented that she's already spoken more English than all the Damage Control. I mean, Julie is really trying, because she understands the key to unlock Giulia as a complete megastar in the WWE, and for her to one day main event one of the nights of SummerSlam, for her to main event one of the nights at WrestleMania, for her to main event any PLE. She understands that WWE is about promos, storytelling, video packages, live promos, backstage promos. She understands that, and she's gonna have complete command of the English language before it's all said and done. And she's gonna show the world why she's the beautiful madness in Japan and in America. 1 month, people. That's how long Giulia has been here. 1 freaking month. And she's willing to cut a live promo. Okay? Pump the brakes. Now let's get to Stephanie Vaquer. You see my eyes lighting up talking about her. Big fan of her, crush on her, all that good stuff. I'm proud. I'm really happy for Stephanie Vaquer, man. I know a lot of people are going to criticize her for burning a lot of bridges in CMLL and Rev Pro and AEW and New Japan. And this is for another video, but WWE was her dream job. She grew up idolizing Rey Mysterio. She tried out for WWE in 2018. She seized the opportunity. We can talk about how it happened and how WWE was shady in some of the activities. We can talk about that in another video, but Stephanie Vaquer is doing her dream job. And she spoke English very well. Now, obviously, going from Spanish to English is going to be a tad bit easier because some of the words can be similar. But Stephanie Vaquer and her team also understands as well that proficient in English in an American promotion and the biggest promotion in the world is you need to maximize your name, your image, and your likeness. And the full weight of the WWE machine can get behind you. So it was great to see Stephanie Vaquer. I don't know when she's gonna physically debut, but it was cool to see her on screen. I'm still hoping that she debuts at Halloween Havoc and not too much sooner because I feel like Stephanie Vaquer deserves a NXT PLE debut arrival, just like Giulia did at No Mercy. So, but Shawn Michaels, the door is completely open for what he wants to do creatively with Stephanie Vaquer, with Giulia, with Roxanne Perez. But I got to get my 5 to 7 match feud with Giulia and with Stephanie Vaquer. They wrestled earlier this year where Stephanie Vaquer did defeat Giulia for the New Japan Strong Women's Championship that at the time Giulia held for over 240 days. Stephanie Vaquer held the New Japan Championship for 100 and some days before she dropped it to Mercedes Marné in Forbidden Door. That's what the WWE was like, let's go get Stephanie Vaquer. But overall, man, you can have so many dream matches between the three of them. You can have a dream match triple threat. You can have Roxanne versus Stephanie Vaquer. You can have Stephanie Vaquer versus Giulia. All three of them wrestle. But it's clear as day. Yes, the overall roster in NXT is very good. You can say great. I can't argue with that. But Stephanie Vaquer, Giulia, Roxanne, they're just on a different level than all the other women. And it's just going to evolve. Now, the most interesting thing is it appears that Stephanie Vaquer is going straight for the NXT Championship. I thought she would probably go for the North American Championship since Giulia is already going for the NXT title against Roxanne. So it's very interesting that Giulia is going straight for the NXT Championship as well, and she should. So it'd be curious to see who's going to dethrone Kalani Jordan at some point. But to see, I just hope Shawn Michaels is a little patient, right? I really don't. I'm okay with Stephanie Vaquer and Giulia interacting right now. But man, I don't want to see a match this soon. I'd rather see a match between these two international, two of the best women in the world. I would like to see a match later down the road. I don't know, but honestly, I don't know how long Shawn Michaels can hold. But I would like to see that match at the beginning of the year, honestly. I don't want to see it this soon. Let some build up happen, right? Of course, you have interactions, have matches with them being around each other, but I just don't want to see them in a match yet. Like let it savor. Because, like I said earlier, a lot of the pro wrestling world and WWE fan base don't know Stephanie Vaquer and Giulia's overall history. They just know that they're here in WWE right now. So allow time for Giulia to get ingratiated. Allow time for Stephanie Vaquer to get ingratiated with the crowd. Get the merch going. Get some chants going. Let them find their character arc in the company, and then you can have a match. But Shawn Michaels can do a lot, and I'm gonna tell you a glaring thing that I saw. Roxanne Perez is already an afterthought with these arrivals because they Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer has so much aura, man. More aura than Roxanne. As great as Roxanne is, she's a little aura less. Great in ring, the best woman, the best female wrestler in NXT at the time until Giulia and Stephanie showed up. But Roxanne at 22 years old is absolutely phenomenal, a flawless wrestler. She's going to be incredible on the main roster. But she's already an afterthought, man. But I do want the respect for Roxanne that I hope that she drops the belt in a PLE because she wanted to stand and deliver. She at the biggest NXT PLE, she deserves to drop it at the last PLE of the year. I think I still hold to my initial take on a previous content video I did. Some kind of way that match is going to end between Roxanne Perez and Giulia in a no contest, and then Giulia ultimately will win at Halloween Havoc. But Roxanne, the transition of power between Roxanne and Giulia or Roxanne and Stephanie, it needs to be protected, creatively thought out, and respected. Roxanne's been a champion for almost 5 months, had a dominant reign, so it should end in a respectful fashion. Um, Despite how great Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer is, Roxanne deserves that. And then Roxanne needs to quickly get up to the main roster, man, because everybody's gonna be clamoring for Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer, especially when Stephanie Vaquer show up. So that's my take on the segment. I thought it was a really great presser. It was a great surprise to see Stephanie Vaquer show up. Giulia spoke English very decently. You could tell she's getting stronger and stronger by the week. Roxanne was being Roxanne, being overly irritated and overly confident, but still a great wrestler. So Shawn Michaels has a lot he can do there. So let's see what happens. We got Giulia versus Roxanne coming up next week on the CW debut, and I'll have a video ready immediately after that match. Like, comment, subscribe if you like the content, and until then, peace out, Pro Wrestling World.